Hey folks, it's Erica here with the Gallatin Valley Sentinel. You may have seen our interviews last year before the election when we sat down with the Bozeman city government study candidates and the Gallatin County candidates. So now we have the ability to interview some of the elected officials. And today we are happy to be sitting down with Carson Taylor and Deanna Campbell. These guys were elected to the Bozeman City Study Commission. And we do hope that we have the opportunity to sit down with all of the elected people on these study commissions. And thank you both for being here. Congratulations on being elected. We appreciate your time and, of course, your commitment to the city. First up, let's just get started with what was your main motivation for the study commission, for running for the study commission, and how do you see that shaping your position on the commission? I guess, Deanna, I'll start with you.
Thank you, Erica.
Sure.
I guess I ran because, like a lot of people in Bozeman, I was experiencing the fact that our city government seemed to be misaligned with many of the goals and vision of the people in Bozeman. And quite frankly, at one of the meetings, one of the commissioners said, well, if you don't like how the city is run, you ought to run for office. And
Yeah.
I took that to heart, and here I am. And I do hope to accomplish a lot in terms of making Bozeman more aligned with the people's vision.
Great. I've been to the meetings and you guys are a good group of folks. So we're excited to see what you do. Carson.
I sat on the commission for 8 years. And before that, I was on the school board for 8 years. And felt like I had something to offer. I have my own critique of city and how it should work and how it does work and all of that. But we also are really a growing city.
Mm-hmm.
And some of the things that were in the charter from 20 years ago maybe don't apply. And so I felt like I had a perspective that would help and enough of a critique that I wasn't going to spend a lot of time defending anything, but rather trying to look at it as objectively as possible from the perspective of kind of knowing what it's like to be on the city commission.
Can you guys give a general summary of what the study commission has accomplished so far? You know, we're kind of started the new year and here we are almost already in March. So things are going by fast. Either of you can talk. We don't have to follow a format.
Well, I guess what we've accomplished so far, Erica, is pretty much the mandated things. We were required to establish bylaws, which we did, and then we were required to publish a timeline, which we are just about ready to publish. We'll finalize it in this next meeting. And we laid out some goals during that time, and we're really gearing up for the major work, which is public outreach. And
when is the next meeting? So we can
March 6th.
Okay.
4 o'clock in the city hall on Rouse.
You brought up that there are some goals, so that's a perfect segue into my next question. What are those goals that you guys have set forth? Carson, I'll let you answer.
The goals in general.
If you can move your camera just a little bit, you kind of cut off.
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you are. No, you're good. We're good.
I've got a copy of what are proposed goals somewhere here, and I was going to just read them.
Perfect.
But of course, it's never as simple as that.
No, I had tried to have two screens going, and that didn't work. So
okay, number one, educate ourselves and the community to develop a comprehensive understanding of the city of Bozeman's current structure, charter form of government, and the processes of local government. And that's mainly to get ourselves all up to speed on how does the city running now, what does the city charter have, and stuff like that. Goal number 2 is to conduct a transparent and inclusive study process that engages the community in evaluating our current structures and identifying any necessary changes. Goal 3, engage the community in the local government study process using a variety of methods to gather information regarding what's working, what's not working, and ideas to explore to improve the city's governance. 4, distill identified issues and provide information to the community in an accessible and approachable manner, including a draft and final report. And then 5, identify ways to educate all of the city's voters on the study commission's final report. This would happen after there is a final report, to encourage their participation in the November 2026 general election.
All right. So I don't want to repeat any questions that you've kind of answered. What are some things that you guys have learned so far that you think the public would benefit from knowing?
Can I jump in, Deanna? I think
sure, of course.
public input is really going to be important to us. And we haven't had a lot of it. So we want to find ways to reach people. But really, the March 6th meeting, you can attend in person, you can attend virtually. We really can benefit from more public input. And kind of an example of that is in the last meeting, we were trying to work language out and on one of the goals, and someone from the community came up and suggested some language, and it was like, yeah, that's exactly what we're trying to say. So that kind of input along the way would, I think, be very helpful to us.
I think, yeah, we have found in our own engagement that a lot of people are still not totally sure what this study commission is, and how kind of easy it is to head downtown and attend a meeting. I know it can be a little intimidating if people aren't really involved in politics or this kind of thing, but it really is simple. It's open and easy. It's not as daunting a thing as I think a lot of people think. And we're trying to help by providing the Zoom links so that people can just click of a button, be included in the meetings and see what's going on. So Carson, what experiences would you say that you're bringing to the table as a former mayor? In what ways, this is my question, in what ways did the charter work well? And what ways do you think it could function better?
I think it worked well in the sense that we, at least when I was on the commission, I thought had pretty good discussions. And that's important amongst us. And I think we're fairly good at explaining what we were doing and why. The thing I like to say by way of critique is I'd like to, if I was on the city commission, I'd like to be in a city where there were no big surprises. And I think some surprises are inevitable, but by and large, if you have outreach to the community so that everybody knows, one, what you're doing, but two, what they're signing up for when they move into the city, that would make a difference. And that, to me, has a lot to do with public outreach, public involvement in the process. For instance, when I was on the commission, we had 39 different advisory boards, all citizen advisory boards. After I left, that number got cut to, I think it's about 10 now. And I think the commission suffers from that. And it's removed a large number of citizens that were sort of in between the commission and the general population from any real position. So that's, I don't know the answer is to go back to 39 boards or how to do it, but it seems to me that part of the problem is that it's not clear what's happening until it's too late.
So this next question, maybe it pertains to the last meeting that I saw. So what is the plan for educating the public on your findings and the soliciting of public comment? So how is that going to be made transparent for the people that are interested in seeing what's happening in the meetings?
Erica, I think that in terms of engaging the public, the meetings that we'll have going forward will have vehicles for that kind of thing. Will be kind of an open mic sort of night. They'll be very different from the formal meetings that are taking place now in the city hall room, where you come up to the dais, and that is intimidating for some people.
Oh, sure.
And also we agreed at our very early meetings to take careful recording of public input so that as time goes on, we can look back at it and refer to it in our deliberations to determine really what the people are bringing forward. And so I think that that's just going to be a really important part of what we do, is developing that, maybe even doing some artificial intelligence for transcribing public input, which is a pretty easy thing to do these days. So
Yeah.
those are decisions we'll be making as a commission soon.
And I love that you're doing public comment at the beginning and at the close of the meetings, right?
Yes.
That's great, because
Yes.
sometimes you hear something and you think, oh, wait, darn, I should have said this or that. So I think that that's a huge opportunity to engage and get people to speak up.
Yeah, we're actually, and I forgot in the last meeting at one point, I got reminded, which is good. Public comment at the beginning, public comment on anything that we're taking action on, and then public comment at the end.
Great.
So as much public involvement as we can fit into it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So how do you guys plan to remove personal opinions to arrive at the conclusion of what's best for the city? It's not a loaded question. I think it's an important one because we all have personal opinions, but you guys were elected to be the voice of the people of Bozeman. So how do you do that? How do you plan to do that?
I'll jump in on that one, Erica. I think that it's really important to understand that city government and the foundation of it, which is the city charter, is constitutional in nature. And by including in our charter or having a commitment to the charter that it be unbiased and that it not enter into social or political ideologies, but simply lay out the structure of our government, how the responsibilities are going to be filled, how the reporting is going to be accomplished, and how the public will be engaged, are all in unbiased kinds of things. And it's going to be upon each one of us to realize that it has to be free of any political or social ideologies. It'll be a test.
You're right. Carson, do you?
Yeah, it's funny because I was a mediator for 30 years till I retired. And one of the things when you start off as a mediation, is you say to the people, your personal opinions and your personal interests matter, but there will come a time in this mediation when the mediator, I'm going to ask you to take a step back and look at the situation objectively, as if you were an independent problem solver that didn't have an interest in it, and help us, all of us, in those situations to come up with the best possible, in this case, form of government. And so I know that I got to take my own advice here.
Right.
There will come a time when we start thinking about different forms of government, different ways of
Sorry.
doing it. That we all have to take a step back and say, okay, we're problem solvers. Here are the problems. Will what we're proposing solve them? And look at it in a really objective way. And hopefully we will all be able to do it.
Yeah. I think I watched the press secretary talk yesterday about making a good deal. And I worked in sales for a very, very, very long time. And I think what she said yesterday really rang true, that a good deal is when both parties walk away just a little bit unhappy, but you've got to meet in the middle. And I think that's a good plan. So early on in the commission meeting, in the study commission meetings, there were 15 items shared as additional background information for the study commissioners. And of the 15 items, 10 of them were DEI related. I know that this is a hot topic. Since the study commission does not focus on adding, changing, removing programs, policies, ordinances, etc., and instead focuses on the plan, form, and power of government, why is there such a heavy focus on DEI? And I'll let you answer that. I just want to let our followers, viewers know that as a group, the Sentinel we don't believe that this falls under the scope of what the study commission should be doing. So DEI, how do we address that?
I'll jump in here, Erica. I think that this is one of the places where we will have to be very alert to the fact that these kinds of things are not a part of the work of the study commission. To incorporate any kind of policy into our work is just simply beyond the scope of what we do. And, I think that it's important that we establish that we treat everybody equally. And there's no discrimination of any kind in the work of the commission or in the work of and duties of the city in the way it performs its governmental duties. So I think we'll have to depend on we'll have to depend on Carson leading us in a good style of mediation.
Thank you.
No pressure, Carson.
First of all, we're trying to figure out how we transparently let the public know what we're doing. So, and we haven't had this discussion, and I know it's been frustrating, partly because we have not yet had a meeting that we didn't go over the allotted time for. And so how do we get this stuff in? And we're doing all procedural stuff. But the original idea was, in my mind, and we haven't had the discussion to define what it is that we're doing, meaning what are the documents that matter, that we want the public to know. And in my mind, it's what are we reading individually or otherwise, to help us understand how the government works and how the government therefore should work, what are the problems with it and what are not. And so some of us made lists, Deanna made lists, and then all of a sudden we came to this, what are we doing with this stuff? And I'm hoping in our March 6th meeting that we have the time to discuss it, because what I see is, let's create a list of all the stuff that we are reading that we think matters, and it's out there so people know what we're reading.
Right.
But it would be too much for any one individual, particularly in the public that's not making decisions, to read it all. For instance, I think that we should all read at least a summary of the community plan, which was developed in 2020. Not so much for the policy in it, but this is a thing that the city does every 5 years. The city has a strategic plan. We ought to read that. The city has passed various ordinances regarding various things and is developing plans. So we at least need to know kind of what's going on in the city and what they're doing. Um, Not because we're going to say this is a bad policy or this is a good policy, but one of the issues I think inevitably is the city doing enough to let the populace of the city know what's going on, so that they can be ready to give input when the time comes.
Right.
So that's, and that's been an issue. I personally don't define DEI the way it's defined by some people. I define it as a way of educating ourselves so that we don't treat people unequally. And that it's sort of got amongst certain sectors of the population, it's viewed as the opposite. And I don't see that.
Hmm.
But my background, I was a lawyer I was a lawyer for 50 years, but the first 20 years of being a lawyer, I worked in a union side labor firm. And we also had a department that did discrimination in employment cases. And so from my perspective, I saw Equal Employment Opportunity Act getting passed in 1964. And in the 1980s, there were still companies that were trying to figure out a way to not hire people of color, clearly and unequivocally. And we went to court, and in some of those cases, forced them. You never want to force anything because when you force it, it's not a good thing, but forcing them to hire people of color in an equal way. So that's some of my background.
Mhm.
But we're going to cross that bridge when we come to it. And I'm totally against us making policy. I'm totally in favor of us setting the groundwork for forms and systems that treat people equally and allow everybody a role in government, whether it's on an advisory board, coming to meetings, giving written input, or anything beyond that we can come up with.
Yeah. And I think your first part of the answer is kind of our mission statement at the Gallatin Valley Sentinel is to drill down this information and go through the pages and pages of documents that most people just don't have the time to do and put it into bite-sized pieces and make it accessible and understandable for people that aren't lawyers, who aren't in politics, who just really kind of want to know what's going on. So the transparency is the key word, and that's what we're hoping to accomplish. And in some of my last questions, I'm going to ask people to help us help the public and give your ideas on how we can help facilitate that. So what areas of government do you plan to examine first?
Deanna, your turn.
Yeah.
Okay. I think that, this coming meeting on March 6th will be primarily devoted to our city attorney, Greg Sullivan, telling the commission and the public who attend a little bit about the role of the study commission and laying the groundwork for the work that we're going to be doing. And I would encourage people to take a look. When you asked what we're reading, one of the things that I read was a study that was done by a fellow, David Nadelson. No, Nadelson is our local guy. I'm sorry, his name just, but I did write a paper on local government as a constitution, or the local charter as a constitution, and the work that we have before us. And I think it's really helpful to know what we have an opportunity in front of us right now. And it's complementary and explanatory beyond what we provided in the red light, green light, and the what a study commission can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that those documents are probably the richest ones in the materials that I would think everyone should really inform themselves with. So there is a common understanding among us of what our work can be.
And also, Deanna, to put you in the hot seat, a few meetings ago, there was a discussion about a document called Shaping Our Future. That has not been shared yet. What is the status of that document? And if you can, once we have the link to let our viewers know, we will be posting that to our blog and on our socials and whatnot. So
Thank you,
that?
Erica. Actually, in this last meeting, it was determined that it would be attached. It won't be attached to the first page like the other documents were. But now all the documents have been, and quite frankly, it's buried pretty deeply. You'll have to have a pick and a shovel to find it. But at the bottom of the agenda, there is a link to materials. And then if you go to materials and then you go to, eventually you get to binder. And then eventually you would get to shaping the future document.
Okay.
So
I think it's called digital binder, but I could have that wrong. And
a bunch of clicks to get lost on the internet. So
yeah,
persistence is what I say is what we need. Persistence as opposed to a pick and a shovel, but it's same principle.
right. Have you guys been in contact with the Gallatin County Study Commission or any others throughout the state? And if not, do you have plans to collaborate them and see what's going on and what's working for them and what's not? I know you don't have enough on your plate, so.
Yeah,
we
I
haven't
think,
actually, go ahead.
Go ahead,
no,
Carson.
go ahead. I think at some point, as we develop our view of what kinds of recommendations we're going to make and what changes, it would behoove us to meet with the county study commission and see what they're doing and see if there's any overlap. So one area, for instance, that I'm curious about, and I don't know if there's anything we can do about it, but when I was the mayor, we met regularly with the county commission, the school board, and Montana State University. I just heard the other day that there was a meeting, I think it was between the city and county governments, and it was the first time they'd met together since 2017. And that kind of freaked me out.
Yeah, that's a long time.
They ought to be meeting more regularly together.
Yeah.
Than that. Whether we can do anything about that, I don't know. I that's an area of study. Is there something we could put into the charter, assuming we're going to do the charter? And I've been assuming that all along, meaning you could pick a form of government and recommend it that doesn't include self-governing powers and doesn't include a charter. I think it's unlikely we will go that way. I think we'll stick with what we've done, and then the question will be, how do you change the charter and how do you make the charter the document that we want it to be?
Deanna, did you have anything to add to that?
No, I would say that I think that our work is a little bit different because the county commission does not deal with a charter unless they decide to put a charter into county government. But currently, they don't. So their work is quite different. But I think we should meet with them. And one of the problems that we face as a public elected body is this quorum thing. So we can never get together more than two of us at a time, or we're a quorum. Now with the county commissioners, they have more. So I think they have 7 commissioners, or
yeah.
So
you mean
the county
commission.
study?
Sorry.
The study commission, right?
Yes.
The study commission.
Yeah.
And but I think that we should get together, just maybe compare notes of how we're going about public engagement, for example. I think that there are lots of opportunities for being creative.
Good idea.
In that regard. So yeah, I think we should get together.
So the current city charter outlines the role of that city attorney, who you said would be a part of the next meeting. So the city has offered those services at no cost to the study commission. Do you guys think that there's a potential for conflict of interest? And if so, does the study commission plan to hire an outside attorney of the city structure to provide some insight outside of our bubble, if you want to call it that.
Well, I actually did bring that up at our budget meeting
Okay.
because I think you're spot on there, Erica, that while we have those services granted to us free, which is wonderful, you're right, there would be some conflict of interest there. So there is within our budget the money put aside to get legal help when it comes to that time where we write or rewrite or amend or whatever we're going to do with the charter, which I think we all agree we're going to be doing. We will get some outside legal assistance, and we budgeted for it.
Great.
Yeah, I think the purpose of meeting with the city attorney at this point is just sort of get us all on the same page as to how the city is running. And interestingly enough, problems have arisen that I wouldn't have thought of that they want help on, meaning when the mayor resigned. So here's an example. The mayor resigned, the deputy mayor in the charter takes over, but there was no position beyond that. There was no in Carson. There was no information in the charter as what you do next, meaning who becomes the deputy mayor when the deputy mayor becomes the mayor. And they had to make it up because the deputy mayor runs the meetings when the mayor's not there. So if the deputy mayor's running the meetings and that person can't be there, how do you pick from the remaining commissioners? So that kind of stuff that they've experienced, hopefully they're going to say, we need help with this, put it in the new charter, a better order of succession if it's needed. So that kind of thing will help us too, I think.
Yeah, you guys have a lot to do. It's a big job, if not the most important job, because you're right there with we the people. So it's a lot, and we commend you for your efforts. So how can we serve as a resource for you to get this out there? I think in a perfect world, we've got the whole town showing up, but this town is what, 60,000 people and growing, and the county is double that. So we're trying to utilize social media as much as we can and keep people abreast of what meetings are coming up, but people are busy. So any ideas for how we can further drive engagement beyond renting out MSU Stadium?
I think a big question that I have is how do you get people engaged enough that they're giving input on things that will involve them at some point,
Yeah.
even though they may not realize it now. And let me give myself as an example. Came to Bozeman, got married, bought a house, and most zoning districts in the city go up. Like if you're in an R1, you're bordered by R2, and then that's bordered by R3. So there's no drastic changes. Across the street from me is R4. It never entered my mind. I didn't think about it. There's an apartment complex there. It's actually been fine for us. We haven't had any problems related to it at all. But I suppose at some point someone could come along and say, we want to tear it down and build something that's so high that it looks into our backyard all the time.
Yeah.
I should have paid attention to that. I did not. I live on a corner. One of the streets has an SID on it. The other street is on the list for having an SID. I could get taxed twice if two new streets are put in. That didn't occur to me at all either. Now,
why would it though? Yeah, it doesn't occur to you until it happens, and then
right.
Yeah,
It's pretty esoteric. But is there a way? Could someone produce, I don't know, a booklet that says when you buy in the city of Bozeman, this is what to pay attention to, so that at least you're not surprised.
Yeah.
Yeah, now we're not going to put that in the charter, but
Why
maybe
not? That sounds like a perfect plan.
maybe some form of a recommendation that something like that be produced, or that the realtors have a role in that. You know, they tell you what school your kids are going to go to. When I was on the school board, I found that out, and that's not always right either. But
Yeah, that's a lot.
yeah,
Deanna, do you have any further
Well, I was
comments on
just
that?
going to say, unfortunately, the state is stepping in. Right as we speak, there are laws in Helena, one of which would establish that, well, actually, the worst one, it was taken off the table. But there is a movement afoot, I'll just say that, where zoning, you don't have any right to maintain the zoning that you're in, or the view that you have, or uh, the sun
Yeah.
that you have. It's like, well, everybody's free to build whatever they want. And it's a bit of a conflict for me, because I do believe in private property rights strenuously, but I do think that there should be parameters. And I think that can come into zoning in the city, and I'm not sure that that would be within the confines of what we're doing.
Right.
But it is a huge concern, for sure.
So
zoning
you guys
creates
have to find the sweet spot in the middle.
yeah,
Exactly.
zoning creates predictability, and people, when they buy a house or move into a neighborhood, want predictability, and I think that's fair.
Yeah.
I do too.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
we all agree on that. So that's a good place to stop. So we don't have to argue. So thank you both for your time. It's an honor to sit here with you today and help just drive some engagement and talk to you guys and have a direct line to you. I invite you both to have a chat anytime you can, maybe every other month. I can bug you and find out what's going on. But truly, thank you. What you're doing is so important. And I know everybody appreciates it. We sure do.
Well, thank you, Erica. And you know, I wish the Sentinel the very, very best, and that you really gain traction in being that communicator that you've set out to be, because I think it's really important that we have a good digital platform, and that people feel free to share their views and not be offended by those views that are opposing, or intimidated from expressing their views. I really laud your goals.
I hope that's the case. We do welcome all views, because that encourages spirited debate. It doesn't have to be left, right. It can be somewhere in the middle, so that we're all thriving in our own community.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I agree, and I think it's crucial, because if you can have fair and respectful debate, you can make better decisions. And I say that as a mediator who has seen people in divorce actions that are so upset with one another that they can't see the other side's point of view.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the most important thing. You don't understand an issue unless you understand all sides of it.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, we'll do this together, and I'll see you at the next meeting. Thank you so much.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.